So I think it's safe to say that the aftermath of the Netflix series Baby Reindeer has been just a little bit crazy. We've had accusations of stalking, internet sleuths finding the real person the show is based on, and now we have that same person going on an interview to unequivocally deny everything. So today we are looking at Baby Reindeer, but more specifically the interview that Martha Harvey has done to basically deny she ever stalked anyone. Now I've watched the full hour interview, so we're going to look at the main points, but if you're sat there thinking, Benjamin, what on earth are you talking about? Let me give you some context. Baby Reindeer is a story about a struggling comedian and his very, very strange relationship with a woman that he meets in a bar. And by that I mean he worked in a pub and she came in every day for a very long time. Or so he claims. At first, everything seems pretty normal, it's just some friendly banter, but eventually it goes from that friendly banter to 41,000 emails over the course of a year. As the story is based on reality, Netflix actually makes use of these emails and often references them alongside some of the posts that this woman made on social media, which when people then saw the show, they used that information to find the real life stalker. They did this by cross-referencing all the posts that were shown in the show with the woman's real life actual public social media posts. However, this woman has now come out to say not only is she not a stalker, but that Netflix and the comedian himself are absolute liars, and that she wants to sue them. So yeah, let's have a look at this interview, shall we? So the first thing that she gets asked is, what do you want to gain from this interview? And she goes on to tell us about all the death threats that she's received and that she's actually never even seen the series or the play that it's based on.
What do you hope to achieve in this interview?
I came on your show because you're a veteran broadcaster. I think you'll give me a fair hearing. You were persecuted yourself not so long ago. So that's why I've chosen this show.
Have you watched the drama?
Not at all. I've heard about the court scene, about the jail sentences and all this sort of stuff.
But you really haven't watched any of it?
I haven't watched any of it.
You're not curious to?
No, I think I'd be sick. It's taken over enough of my life. I find it quite obscene. I find it horrifying, misogynistic. Some of the death threats have been really terrible online.
So firstly, I think it goes without saying, and it's probably obvious to quite a lot of you watching at home, that sending someone death threats is just not a normal thing to do. Like, what goes on in the show is absolutely insane, but I do think that the reaction to then go and hunt the woman down and just send her death threats is really, really weird. But I think that just comes with society these days. It's just something that for some reason is just becoming the norm. But anyway, she then goes on to talk about how she felt after the show came out and everyone started naming her as the stalker in the show.
That moment you realised it was you that they were depicting from what you were reading. The sleuths, as you say, had found your tweets, they compared some of the phraseology, they'd done the maths and they worked out this was you that was being depicted. How did that make you feel?
Absolutely horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. I couldn't believe he'd done that. And so long after first meeting, you know, we're talking 10, 12 years ago, really horrendous. I didn't know who to trust.
We then get to the part where she basically starts her whole denial of anything happening. And I will just say, before you make your mind up about whether or not she's lying in this interview or if she's actually come out and, you know, giving a tell-all story about how they're lying about her, I would watch the series first, because I think a lot of people are very strongly on the consensus that she is the person the series is based on, and if she is in fact that person, then she's done some very, very mental things that just aren't, you know, cool, I guess is the way to put it. So the first thing she says is that Richard Gadd, the comedian who plays himself in the show, has problems, and that the show is hyperbole or exaggeration and has nothing to do with reality.
I just generally think he's got extreme psychiatric problems.
I mean, there's no doubt he has problems. I mean, if you watch given that he's written it about himself, if you watch the whole thing as I did, all 5, 6 episodes, whatever it is, he has a lot of problems. He's quite open about that. The question, I guess, which we'll come to, is how much of the way he depicts you is true. And your position is that it's just not factual.
It's a work of fiction, it's a work of hyperbole, as I've always said. And there are 2 true facts in that. His name is Richard Gadd, and he worked as a jobbing barman on benefits in the Holy Arms, and we met.
Another thing that I want to add is that throughout this interview, she does a lot of basically just insulting the guy, but she just basically sits there the entire time saying that he's unemployed, has no job, and has no life, which definitely is one way that you could defend yourself. She then makes the claim that in reality, it was actually the other way round, and Richard was actually obsessed with her.
I was in for a meal with a drink of lemonade, and I was very, very hungry. I'm diabetic, so very hungry. So that's.
And did you talk to him?
He interrupted a conversation. There was another barman there, and he said, "Oh, you're Scottish," and basically commandeered the conversation. I was talking to somebody. It's pretty rude to interrupt. So he seemed to be obsessed with me from that moment onwards.
I mean,
that's basically what I mean, where she just kind of slides in these little digs underneath every single one of her sentences. So there she said, "Oh, like he came over and he started talking to me while I was talking to someone else, and that's actually pretty rude for someone to do if you didn't realise." She then goes on to give us a list of things that the show claims to be true, but she is saying are complete lies.
It says in the show that you proceeded to return to the same pub time and again, but you never paid for a drink.
I don't drink alcohol, and
did you pay for anything that you had in the pub?
Lemonade or soft drinks.
Would he give you free drinks? Or?
No, absolutely not.
It says that you told Richard Gadd that he looked like a baby reindeer toy you once had as a child, hence the name of the show.
Yeah.
Is that true?
I appear to have written most of the show in my sleep. I dressed
Did you have a baby reindeer
I
toy?
had a toy reindeer.
So that's true.
And he'd shaved his head. That bit is true. And there were reindeers in the shops. It was Christmas time or something. It was a joke.
Whilst bantering with you, Richard Gadd told you he'd like to hang your curtains. Is that true?
This, I think, was a Holy Arms joke about curtains and a lot of sexual innuendo.
He did say that?
Yeah.
Is it true that you caught Richard Gadd looking through your window after he followed you home one day?
False.
You never saw him at your house?
I didn't see him at my house. I think it would be impossible to look through a window.
Did anyone else ever see him there?
No.
So as far as you were concerned, he never turned up at your place?
Correct.
In the course of your relationship with Richard Gadd, you sent him 41,000 emails, 350 voice messages, 744 tweets, 48 Facebook messages, and 106 letters.
That's simply not true. If somebody was sending somebody 41,000 emails or something, they'd be doing how many a day? Lots.
Well, they'd be obsessively contacting
yeah, absolutely know it.
You'll come to see as we look further into this interview that she really hangs on to this idea that sending 41,000 emails over the course of a year would be an insane thing to do, and she would never do that because she's not insane herself. It's kind of her biggest point as to why the show is completely false, because she says that you'd have to be obsessed with someone to be able to send that many emails. She then accuses Netflix and Richard for completely lying about everything, and says that she definitely never sent any of these 41,000 emails, but she did send him a handful of emails, she says. And again, the reason that she says she couldn't send these 41,000 emails is because it would be impossible to send that many. Still going on about the emails, she then says that she's prepared to go to court with Richard and says that he's completely made the emails up, which, if true, would almost be more insane than sending someone 41,000 emails in the first place. Like, to sit there and write 41,000 emails to yourself as a stalker, I don't know. I really don't think that's possible. They then talk about a bit in the show where Richard is giving a stand-up performance and she starts heckling him. And then another part of the show where she ends up attacking Richard's girlfriend. And the reason she gives for this not being true is so absurd that you won't believe it if I tell you, so I'm just going to let her say it.
It goes on to say that you heckled Richard Gadd when he was appearing in his stand-up shows. Did you ever do that?
No.
Never?
No, it's not.
Did you ever attend his stand-up?
I think I went to one. It was a long, long time ago.
And you never shouted out or anything?
Why would I do that? No.
I don't know.
No, I mean,
Do you ever shout
that?
out at comedy shows? I don't know. People do.
No, I don't generally go to comedy shows.
So
But
you
no.
never heckled him?
No.
Did you ever attack Richard Gadd's girlfriend because you were jealous?
No, I don't think he had a girlfriend. I think he's homosexual. But no, I have never been to his house.
No, I couldn't have attacked his girlfriend because he's gay and never had one. Again, this is just another way of her trying to almost insult him by saying he's never had a girlfriend and claiming that he's gay. Obviously, it's not a bad thing to be gay. I'm not saying that it's an insult to be called gay, but the way she's saying it is she's trying to insult him, okay? You know what I mean. There was also a part there where, and I'm not a body language expert, but I've seen a couple videos, and while she's denying something happening, she starts nodding, which I'm pretty sure is like one of those signs that they always say is like, oh, they're telling a fib. But like I said, I'm not an expert. I just kind of thought that was an interesting thing to look at. They then talk about the courtroom scene where in the show she pleads guilty to stalking him. And she says that this is completely false and that she's never even been to prison. Which in the UK, you can't check someone's criminal record unless you're like their employer and you're doing like a background check. So this isn't something that we can easily check, but I'm sure there must be a way, like whether this goes to court later or something, where they can kind of just be like, oh, you have been to prison and you've been to prison for so-and-so. And correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I believe in America you can actually check people's criminal records, which in this instance would have been very useful because I could show you right now whether or not she's telling the truth. Skipping forward a little bit through the interview, she then goes on to talk about why she thinks Richard made up this story, as she claims, and sold it to Netflix.
My view is it's all about the money. The Martha Barstow Edinburgh Festival thing wasn't making any money. He'd failed as a comedian, he'd failed as an actor, and therefore, let's make some money, sell this to Netflix.
What she's referencing there when she talks about the Martha Barstool is an earlier play that he used to do at an Edinburgh comedy festival. And she says that that stand-up play thing that he used to do was loosely based on her, but the show that came from that play is not based on her. See, I don't really know how it works, but let's just move on anyway. She's then asked about the 350 voicemails that are referenced throughout the show, and she says that she never left a single one. And quite rightly, she's asked, well, how do they exist then? And she says that if they even do exist in the first place, then somebody must have been recording her while she was in the pub. And sorry, I didn't mean to laugh there at her because, you know what, like, spit your shit, queen. But that's got to be like one of the funniest excuses I've ever heard.
Is it possible he's got 350 voice messages?
I doubt that very much. I just don't think so.
You doubt it?
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, unless
Wouldn't
he's
he be
taping me.
I mean, if you've never really contacted him, if he's
He
got
could have
three,
been taping me in the Holy Arms, though.
but if he's got 350,
I've not contacted
but if these
him.
are on his phone.
Yeah, it doesn't matter whether they're on a phone, tablet, whatever they're on. I've not contacted
But I'm curious,
him.
why would there even be a possibility of him having that number of voice messages from you?
Because he's crazy, he wants to make this up. I mean, I've not phoned the guy. I don't have his number.
Yeah, but you're not sure that he hasn't got those.
I think the only explanation for having a voicemail from me would be taping me in the Holy Arms. That's the only place we've
Or
ever
that you've
met.
left messages on his phone.
That's the other explanation, which just didn't happen.
So yeah, I don't really know how I feel about that answer watching it back. It kind of feels very well rehearsed, especially the way she immediately says it once the voicemails are brought up. And it could just be the way that she talks and this is how she actually just sounds, but even the way she says things and the way she's answering these questions, it just feels like a big lie. They then go back to talking about the potential court case that could come up after this. And then she does a very funny thing where she says she's not directly challenging him to bring up any evidence, but then calls him a liar and then says that she doesn't want to use that word and then goes back on that and says, you know what, actually, he is a liar.
Are you challenging him to reveal this evidence?
No, I would challenge him to leave me alone.
Because you're calling him a liar and you're calling Netflix accomplice to
I didn't
these
use
lies.
those words. I said the story, the play, the Netflix show is not true.
No, but if they say that you sent 41,000 emails,
Well, they
350
are
voice
completely
messages.
wrong.
all 744
They're
tweets,
completely wrong.
so they are lying.
They are lying. Yes, okay, yeah, in effect, he is lying and they are lying.
I just don't understand why, if what she's saying is true, that it was so hard for her to say that they're lying. Like, maybe she was thinking in a legal sense that she can't just come out publicly and say they're lying, but saying that they're completely wrong and that the story's not true is the same thing as saying that they're lying. She then throws another insult his way and tries to make a claim that he was actually obsessed with her and that he wanted to have sex with her, even though she, earlier in the show, tried to say that he was gay. So I don't know how, if she's saying he was gay, that he then wanted to have sex with her.
By his own admission, he has said that he led you on at times. And he clearly
I gave him
was...
the brush off. He asked me to sleep with him with a big green spot in his face one day. I said, no, I'm sorry, I'm not interested.
He asked you to do what?
He asked me to sleep with him. He said, would I like my curtains fixed? And I laughed. And he said, that's a euphemism. Do you want me to come home with you? And I said, I've got a boyfriend.
Again, I would just like to reiterate that earlier in the interview, she was claiming that he's gay. So I still don't really get how she can make both of those claims, that he is, one, gay, and two, wanted to have sex with her. The interview then ends with her giving a public address down the barrel of the camera as a sort of message to the people who still doubt her.
I think you should watch this. I think you should look at the number of articles that Richard Gadd and Jessica the actress have done and how Netflix and he have promoted this. I think you should look at him saying, I am some sort of mental case, and judge for yourselves, because I can't change your mind on this. I can just rebut what has been said. You need to make up your own minds. But my mind is made up. He's a liar. And my friends say likewise.
So yeah, she basically says that you need to look at everything and make your own mind up, but the reason that she says it's not true is because her and her friends don't believe it to be. And are doing a lot of articles and sort of press about it. That also means it's not true. But it's a very interesting situation, because I can't really think of a time where Netflix has released a show in this same sort of genre, you know, like true crime dramas, that sort of stuff. And the big bad guy of the show has then come out afterwards and gone, you know what, Netflix, you're all a bunch of liars. So I am very interested to see how this develops, because she mentions a lot that she wants to take them to court and that she's going to pursue legal action. So I think in a few months or so we might have some more information on that. But let's just look at some of these comments quickly. She's not lying, she's 100% believing her own lies. This is classic narcissism. They believe their own BS. It's actually incredibly frustrating. Any sympathy I had for Martha/Fiona was lost after watching this interview. She's every bit as deranged and dangerous as the show predicts. The PTSD she will have created in her victims will be life-changing. She says she didn't watch the show, but somehow knows everything that happened in the show. There's also this comment saying Netflix must be so grateful for her single-handedly supplying the plot for season 2. Again, I don't think there's ever been a time when Netflix has released a true crime series that has basically given itself a season 2. After this interview, I am 100% convinced that Richard isn't lying about her behaviour. Obviously, I've only read out a handful of these comments, but genuinely, I haven't found any that go against the grain. It seems that the general consensus is that people believe the show and think that she is just lying in this interview. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that she is lying and she actually is the person the show is based on and everything the show says is true? Or do you believe her and that she actually is the victim in this situation and is being wrongfully persecuted by Netflix, Richard Gadd, and now the public? Personally, I think this interview was very telling of her true personality, and I don't think it's done anything to help her. But if you did enjoy this video, please do leave a like, and if you're down there, you might as well subscribe as well, because it will do me wonders. But other than that, see ya.